All right.
So where
So,
are we starting? East, West?
oh no, we starting out in the West, Cowboy.
Okay.
So we're gonna start off with the Minnesota Wild versus the Dallas Stars. And well, Dallas has low-key been kind of on fire lately. They finished the season 10-2-1 in their last 13. The trade acquisitions at the deadline seem to be paying off right now, especially Ryan Reeves, which is actually kind of funny when you think about it, because he's not known to be an offensive player, but he just seems to have sparked something. Did I? No, that was the Wild. Excuse me. Excuse me. I see. This is why I need the cold brew.
I
The
was gonna say something, but I was like, let me.
I usually figure it out, but yeah. Anyway, this is what. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the mishap, but yeah, cold brew. That's what it's here for. So the Dallas Stars, like I said, finished the season 10-2-1 in their last 13. A very uh I don't want to say underrated move, but a move that very much flew under the radar for them at the trade deadline, which is in what you said, Liam, and now I'm agreeing with you, is the trade for Max Domi.
It was a big trade. And you know what? You'd be hard pressed to look at any team that was on the cusp of the playoffs. And I think at the time, Dallas was first in the Central Division. Anybody is going to need a Max Domi in their lineup. A top six forward, a guy who can really slot in anywhere. If you have a lot of depth up front, he can be a third line player. He provides that physicality. He's a playoff type performer. I thought it was going to be a big time get from the get go. And it was. And you know what, Shade's looking at this roster and looking at this series. Look, I want to give Minnesota a chance, but I just look at Dallas. They're a hot team right now. They got arguably, maybe Connor Hellebuck gives them a run for his money, but arguably Jake Ottinger is the best goaltender in the Western Conference right now in this playoffs. Their defense is good as well. There's veteran leadership in Ryan Suter. Miro Heiskanen has had an underrated season. I think Niels Lundqvist, as much as I wouldn't like to admit it, and probably you wouldn't like to admit it, he's looked good since coming over from the Rangers. Esa Lindell, I like a lot. Colin Miller as well. I think this is a complete team. I like their coaching too. Look, I think that the Dallas Stars are not going to win the Western Conference. I don't even think that they'll get to the conference final, but I think that it's a really good matchup for them going up against Minnesota, a team that doesn't have a lot of goaltending. Yes, their acquisitions have come in and really molded well to complete the team, but I just can't take Minnesota at this juncture. For me, Dallas has been leading the Central for most of the season, and this should be a cakewalk. I think Minnesota is going to win in six. I mean, Dallas is going to win in six. See, I messed up too.
Yeah,
Some of this
it's
series.
contagious. It's very much contagious. But like you just said, the trade deadline acquisitions for the Wild are meshing well, especially the Ryan Reeves for Minnesota. There we go, Mike. You're doing good. And as well, they also acquired Gustav Nyquist, Marcus Johansson, and Oscar Sundquist, as well as John Klingberg, which was a little bit puzzling for them because Klingberg is, let's be honest, not having the best of seasons. But the other moves on paper, you and I were both, we weren't exactly raving about them, but we were just like, yeah, those are some decent moves for the Wild. But in the long run, the Wild finished the season losing 5 of 7. And just for reference throughout the episode, I am going to be all over the place with the team's record in the final however many games. So prepare yourselves, especially you, Liam, because you only know like 2 of the series that I got up to with this when we were talking beforehand. But yeah, in the long run, I think Jake Ottinger performs extremely well again. And a major tipping point in this series for me was just looking at Minnesota's all around roster on paper. I do not like their center depth at all. And while I do think that they have good players to be playing center, it's just I look at other teams around the league and I go, no, I'm not taking Minnesota's center depth. But Stars in 6 is my official prediction as well. So I share that with you. And yeah, that's about all I got on that series. You got anything else?
Yeah, just to go over what you were talking about with Minnesota. Again, their center depth is pretty pathetic, to be honest. I mean, Ryan Hartman, I think, is a pretty good center, but I don't think he's a first-line center. I don't think he's a second-line center either. Freddie Gaudreau, who they just signed to a pretty long-term extension at a pretty decent AAV. Again, he's a fourth-line center as well. Sam Steele has had a pretty good year after playing with Anaheim over the last couple years. So again, I think that their center depth is lacking, like you mentioned. I think that their forward group is good, though. I love Kaprizov. I love Zuccarello. I think Johansson is a good forward as well. Matt Boldy, we know how good he is. Ryan Reeves as well. We know how much he can impact the game when he's on his game. Of course, didn't play that well for the Rangers in last year's playoffs. And then you look at the defense, again, John Klingberg, arguably having his worst season of his career. But Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba, and Middleton, those are pretty decent for defensemen. I just think it's just not a good matchup going against this Stars team. And if you compare the center depth, lastly, Shades, of the Stars and the Wild, you look at the Stars, they have Joe Pavelski, you have Rope Hintz. There are a number of centermen on that team that completely outduels those aforementioned centermen I was talking about with the Wild. So I think it's a foregone conclusion. Could be Stars in 5, but I'll lock it in at Stars in 6.
All right, sounds good. And yes, I as much now that you brought up Zuccarello, before we move on to the next series, I have to say that I did in fact bring a Rangers jersey to have right next to me, and it is Matt Zuccarello. For anyone who can see, I will try and there we go. So yeah, good luck to Minnesota, but I see Dallas taking it. And now that's all I have.
That's all I have as well. All good.